will come into the question and answer. Yeah?
Yes, Ambassador, sure.
So just signal like this if I'm speaking too much and you need to cut me off.
Sure, Ambassador. So, Ambassador, we are supposedly just... Ambassador, we are live. And so, Neetsa Bula Vinaka, Namaste. Good evening and good morning to one and all joining us live in our e-dialogue hosted by Youth of India Foundation. I would sincerely like to express my sincerest gratitude to Ambassador Dr. Satyendra Prasad, His Excellency, Permanent Representative of Fiji to the United Nations, for accepting our invite in sharing his thoughts with Youth of India today. Ambassador Dr. Satyendra Prasad commenced his work as the Permanent Representative of Fiji to the United Nations from 4th May 2018, bringing with him vast international development and academic experiences. Immediately prior to joining the Ministry for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Fiji, he was the CEO of the Papua New Guinea Governance Facility based in Port Moresby, supporting the design and implementation of over 50 programs with the Australia PNG Governance Partnership. Between 2002 and 2017, Ambassador Prasad worked as a senior governance specialist with the World Bank and UK's Department for International Development on a wide range of policy, analytical and program areas in India, Afghanistan, Nepal, Pakistan, Armenia, Bosnia, Albania, Serbia, Kosovo, Somalia, Solomon Islands, and many other countries. Dr. Prasad was an academic at the University of South Pacific, based in Suva, Fiji, for 14 years. USP is a regional university collectively owned by 13 South Pacific member states. Through USP, he has researched and advised on a broad range of development challenges facing small island states. Ambassador Prasad has also been a commissioner to Fiji's public services. Dr. Prasad studied at the University of the South Pacific, Fiji, University of New Brunswick, Canada, United Nations University, Tokyo, and Warwick University, UK, and has been a visiting scholar in universities in Japan, Ireland, New Zealand, and countries across the globe. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for accepting our invite today, and we're glad that you're here with us today. Ambassador, you know, we started our journey with a no back in 2015, and we took no as a new opportunity, and that has made all the difference today. As a youth-led organization that has been working at local, state, and national level, we host campaigns on the ground, organize discussions and dialogues with the activists and policymakers. As of today, Ambassador, we have had 100 plus successful campaigns, some of which includes Unplastic India, Gandhi Talks, role of Gandhi in localizing and rejuvenating sustainable development, Share One, Plant One, distributing 100,000 plants with the message of Share One, Plant One, and many more. In 5 years of our activism, we have taken range of local issues to national and then to international platforms with all of your support, mentorship, and guidance at various forums. You know, with all our viewers, I would like to share one of my specific incident with our ambassador. I mean, while I was there back in United Nations for the General Assembly for one of the events, and I was so mesmerized, the kind of support that he extended going out of the way in our campaigns called Unplastic India and encouraging us to use nature-based solutions. I am so proud that I am, you know, I am witness of ambassadors' guidance and mentorship. Interestingly, Fiji and India shares a lot in common, ranging from food to culture and many more. However, together as one, both Fiji and India has one thing in abundance that will directly contribute to achieving climate action and will further lay a roadmap for the entire world. And that happens to be our various sustainable and nature-based products, which the ambassador himself is a big representative or advocate about. Again, Fiji and India's mangroves have something in common. Ambassador, the region that I come from, West Bengal, is very much recognized for Sundarbans, the mangroves, which has also been given and declared as the UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1997. And it is spread about 10,000 square kilometers. And I'm so glad that you equally echo about the sustainable tourism from the mangroves and the nature-based solutions that mangroves give for the sea level rise. Now, without much delay, we have our own ambassador and our very mentor. I would request Ambassador to share his keynote address on role of youth of Fiji and youth of India in sustainable development of small island developing states. Ambassador, over to you.
Thank you, Sailesh, for that very generous introduction, and thank you very much, Nisambula. Namaskar to all your listeners from New York, and it's a pleasure to see you again and connect with you again. I remember very fondly when we interacted at the Climate Summit last year. It was a very important climate summit, and Youth of India were very, very active on their own, but also in networking with the youth groups from very exciting work at the climate summit, where I became very fond of the work that you did. We're very impressed by your Unplastic India campaign. I think that was a spectacular and must remain a great campaign. That is one of the big problems the world faces, and bringing practical and pragmatic products that are sustainable, that encourage consumers to make choices that are climate friendly, and that in the end is win-win for everybody. That is exactly where I think Youth of India and Youth of Fiji and Youth of the Pacific and Youth of the world more generally need to be in there. The plastics is just one very, very practical example of the good work you do. So I really congratulate you on that great campaign and the good work that you are doing. And I hope that this afternoon, this morning for me, conversation will help you connect better with the Pacific Island youth, with Fijian youth, and that you can do more and more things together as well going forward. So this is a great start. You know, the world is, I'll make few remarks and then we can have a more interactive discussion. It's probably I'm the last person to give a lecture to young people, because I think the ideas and the energy and the imagination is with you rather than with people of my generation. So I'd much rather be listening to you. It's needless to tell your audience that the world is way off on the climate targets, way off on the path that we are on currently. We are headed for a disaster very, very soon. And the window of time that the world has in which we can act to save life as we know it, and to save biodiversity as we know it, and save food systems as we know it, is shrinking too fast, very, very fast. And so this is not even though we are all responding to one of the great challenges of our time, which is COVID-19. We have to get out of COVID-19 very quickly, and we have to return to an accelerated path to sustainability. That is so fundamental. We have probably 10 years, and the data that is coming out almost on a daily basis, almost on a weekly basis, is just shocking. The scientists themselves are being surprised by what is the new data that is coming out. So you have seen probably last week or 2 weeks ago, the temperature levels in the Arctic circles are already about 1% higher than where the scientists said only 2 years ago. So that is the pace at which things are unfolding. So that climate change is so fundamental, and the oceans that unites India and Pacific, Indian and Pacific Oceans are one ocean system that connects young people in India, I hope, and young people in Fiji and the Pacific in a different way. Climate change impacts on the melting glaciers in the Himalayas, and this connects to the Pacific in sea level rise in the Pacific. This is the ways in which we are all interconnected. The plastic that washes off from Asia into the Pacific Ocean ends up in food that people consume, in the salt that people consume. So it is interconnected in that way. So in every way, climate change connects human activity and bad human activity with bad and difficult outcomes for people, and even worse outcomes for young people and children who will inherit the planet. So that's one part of the story. Second, does the world have a plan? And yes, the world has a plan, and the plan is the SDGs, the global goals. They say it is very clear, if all countries in the world committed themselves to achieving the global goals, we will probably escape this unfortunate outcome of runaway climate change. This is not a time for sitting back. It is time for action. It is time for accelerated action. It is time for great determination in trying to achieve the global goals in India, in Fiji, in Africa, in Europe, everywhere in the world. It can't be won and lost in one country. It has to be achieved in every country. One country can't make the greenhouse emissions reductions alone. Every country has to achieve the net zero outcome. Otherwise, we lose it all. So that's very reassuring that we have a plan, and that is the global goals. Now, then the next question is to young people: do we have the resources? And I must also say that quite confidently, the world has more than enough resources, more than enough financial resources are at play already in the world that can be deployed to achieve the global goals, but there's a disconnect. Do we have the technologies that are needed to achieve the global goals? All the technologies are that we need to achieve the global goals already exist. So nothing has to be invented if we did not want to invent. We can keep on inventing, and we should keep on inventing, but all the technology platforms, from sustainable energy to green shipping to transportation, in more sustainable food production systems, conserving our biodiversity, all the technologies, social and nature-based solutions, etc., already exist. So that's number two. Do we have the human resource capacity in most countries? And here, maybe in the small islands, Fiji and some of the smaller islands, we will say that maybe we do not have the human resource capacity in some of the areas, but by and large, we have the human resource capacity for achieving the global goals in most of the areas. So what is the problem then? And maybe this is the heart of perhaps the discussion. The problem may be that there is a lack of political will, that achieving the global goals and trying to achieve net zero outcome for our planet, not for one country, for our planet, is not yet the best politics. It has to become the best politics, that everyone finds that that is the thing that wins them power and wins them into positions of responsibility. So that's one part. And second part is, do young people, especially with their knowledge power, with their financial power, with the technological power, are these deployed in the right places, in the places that are helping us achieve the SDGs? And there I really want to listen to you. My own sense, it is probably in the right area, but we need to get it a lot more in the right area. But thank you again for letting me make some introductory and opening remarks. I really welcome this conversation, and I really welcome an opportunity for young people in India to connect with their energy and their ideas and their enthusiasm with young people in Fiji and the Pacific Islands in working together to achieve the global goals and fight climate action, take a more determined action on saving our oceans and maintaining the productivity of our oceans. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. I mean, it's such a delight listening to you. And the best about you is that you mention everything so, on a course of action, the kind of plan that we need to have, then the resources, the problems, it is just like a cakewalk for all of us who all us are listening on live with you, that, what are the plans that we could have? Does the world have a plan? What are the resources available? And what are the kind of challenges that even young people today could, face or would be going through? Thank you so much, Ambassador, for such a fantastic keynote remarks and the introductory remarks that you have shared with us today. Ambassador, there has been an understanding about that because of this pandemic, there has been a lot of chaos that must have happened. But as it is said, that everything has a two sides of a coin, as it said. So, Ambassador, do you see that there has been any positive impact on seeds due to pandemic? Or has there been any positive impact because of, in the entire COVID on seeds, on Fiji or across the globe in specific?
Okay, so thanks very much. Positive is not necessarily the right term, but COVID has exposed two things. One, how interconnected we are. You saw that COVID spread within days, and within a couple of weeks, it impacted on all of the whole of the globe virtually, right? That type of thing 50 years back, 100 years back would have taken years. The next ship would have arrived, and but in the global world, it arrived so quickly. So that's the first point. COVID reached Fiji and the Pacific probably on the same day that it would have reached India, more or less one day later, or a couple of weeks, but that's not very important. However, for small island states, this is some of the conundrum, the negative side. Fiji, it's a beautiful country with 300 islands, and most of the Pacific are very beautiful country. So I hope your listeners will one day be able to visit this region, highly tourist dependent. And so as soon as COVID and the air borders were shut down, tourism collapsed fully. In Fiji's case, our dependence on the tourist economy is nearly 50% of the economy depends on tourism in one way or the other. So the economies of Fiji and many of the Pacific Islands have taken one of the hardest hit in the world. So that's one part. The second part on the positive side is that no one country will win COVID alone. So it is pointless for Fiji to say we are COVID free, we are COVID contained, but we eventually have to reopen our skies and our ports, and we have to welcome visitors back. And for us to welcome visitors back, we have to make sure that the countries from which visitors are coming are also COVID free. So that is the way in which we have to fight and win COVID together. So I think in a positive way, my own belief is that the whole world has come out, even though some of the headlines may not look like that, stronger, that we need to tackle this problem together within a country. The scientists working with health workers, working with social workers, working with community leaders, working with young people, with businesses and governments working together within countries. Exactly the same thing, working globally. We are connecting. The networks have to work together. The scientists have to share data and information together. The race to develop vaccines is energizing a lot of research across in India and across the whole of the world in very connected way. That's a positive to me that has come out, that level of cooperation and collaboration that has come out, because it dawned on us that this is a global problem. Exactly the same way, if we can get that same level of working together and cohesion in tackling the climate crisis, which to me is a far bigger problem for our planet in the longer term, we will win this. I'm not saying that the pain and suffering from COVID is any less from the pain and suffering from that comes from climate catastrophes and storms and cyclones and sea level rise from oceans. That's not the right way to think about it. But certainly climate crisis will affect all areas of human activity, all areas of human life. In some countries slowly, in some countries faster, sadly in the Pacific Islands much faster, and in some of the other countries at a slower pace. So that I think is a great good that has come out of the COVID pandemic.
Ambassador, you know, the kind of 2 C's that you mentioned, cooperation and collaboration. I think you have rightly mentioned, I think with this entire COVID, it has brought more the countries together, and it has really shown that to achieve SDG 2030, or maybe to achieve the climate action, and when we are talking about the decade of action from now on, we have to cooperate and collaborate together in achieving it. And that is fantastic that is coming out with this entire dialogue that we could have. Ambassador, you know, you mentioned a lot about, and you know, earlier we do understand that there has been a lot of common ties between India and Fiji, and we share a common vision as well, Ambassador, a vision towards a greener and a cleaner environment. I mean, India and Fiji together has something that shares a common vision. So Ambassador, what do you think that the youth of both these nations should do in order to achieve our common vision? You know, because earlier when you mentioned that there is a problem, there could be a political, there might not be a very strong political will, and I'm just not mentioning about both countries. However, there could be a lack of political will in other nations as well to achieve it. But in terms of our nation, what do you see that young people today could do or could take this baton that the prime ministers and the heads of states from both these countries envision to achieve the climate action?
Thank you. That's again a great question. I'm not sure how much detail your listeners are aware of, but I'll take a couple of minutes just to lay a bit of the foundations of Fiji and India and whole of Pacific relation. You know, we all have a long relationships ever since our independence. In Fiji's case, it's also a very special relationship because many people like myself trace our ancestry to India 150 years ago, plus and minus. So there's also that those historic ties as well. India, in achieving the SDGs, many things that are important. One very important thing is learning from between South and South countries. Sharing technologies, sharing information, sharing experiences and developmental approaches between our countries is quite important. India has a platform at the United Nations through which it provides support to the small islands of the Pacific. And this is both through the Commonwealth as well as through the South-South offices of the United Nations. And it is providing extensive support to all of these 13 countries that you have mentioned. Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, Vanuatu. Some of these countries, maybe some of your listeners might not have heard of, but please look at the map on a large scale. But let me take that moment to also say a thing about, we have a tagline of SIDS, of small island developing states. But when you take our ocean territories in size, we are very large ocean states. So Fiji has a small landmass, but with our ocean area, we have 1.5 million square miles of the surface of the planet. Collectively, these countries put together, they have 25 million square kilometers of the surface of the planet is what you're talking about. So it's a large ocean state. But going back to the question, so there's that type of platform for young people to be involved through the India partnerships with the Pacific Islands, whether they're on solar transition and energy transition, in applied agriculture, in agricultural research, in the using new technologies, new seed technologies, which can adapt to salination and that type of impact on our coastal lands, using new satellite technologies for agriculture and forecasting weather competence. There are a whole range of areas in which young people can engage, and the platforms are being opened and created. I hope going forward that your listeners will get more excited by this very substantial part of the planet that I have just presented to you, 25 million square miles out of the Pacific Ocean, which is nearly half of the planet of surface of the planet. The whole of the Pacific Ocean. Some of that is the American coast, and some of them is Japan and Indonesia and so on. But I'm just talking about the Pacific Islands. That in areas such as research on how is global warming impacting on coastal communities and their livelihoods, one. Two, how is global warming and acidification, for example, impacting on coral reefs on which we rely on for our foods and as well as for life generally. On new technologies which are very climate friendly, which can be used for marine production of food from the oceans, for new superfood that are more ocean based. In the end, oceans are more likely to be the farms where we will be deriving food in the future. And these are all, the science is already breathtaking, and we need to be moving much faster in these type of areas. But beyond that, all sorts of other opportunities for young people to connect with the young people in Fiji and across the Pacific, whether they are in music and the arts, and I hope more of music and arts and the expressive arts can be put to helping us fight the battles on oceans and present the story of the oceans and climate change and climate action to the larger world. So I hope there's more interaction in that area. Then for young people in India, especially with your superpower skills on IT, I hope that more and more of these people in these industries find Fiji and the Pacific more attractive, because we will be, all countries, including India, are looking for new technology-based apps, etc., that can be part of climate action, that can be part of oceans action, ocean climate action, and there's a whole set of innovations, etc., that are needed on a much larger scale. So across any sector, I think it's limitless, the potential. I really hope that your listeners will be excited by the opportunities for forging these partnerships. But I must say very confidently that the platform of India and Fiji and Pacific relations are very, very well established, and there's so many areas in which you will already find a lot of work that is happening. But I just really want to encourage you to take this to a much, much higher level.
Right. Ambassador, I think this has been rightly put. And one specific mention of about art and culture and the music that you mentioned, I think this is what connects a lot of young people very well. And I'm sure Fiji and Indian young people together would have a lot to bring art and culture or music together in giving back on achieving an implementation of SDG 2030 as well. Ambassador, I have also been told that you are accompanied by your wife, Kushman Ram, Miss Kushman Ram, who is definitely a gender development socialist, but also happens to curate and present traditional handloom and craft weaving exhibitions internationally. And this is something fantastic to hear. And I think there's a lot of sustainable solutions that can also come out with innovation, with creativity in the handlooms and the craft weaving. And very recently, I mean, with this entire pandemic, our very Prime Minister Narendra Modi had announced, I think a revolutionary movement called Atmanirbhar Bharat, wherein taking products from local to global. And something that I have with myself is the region that I come from is surrounded by 4 countries: Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and China. Siliguri, which is in the foothills of Darjeeling, right? And Ambassador, there, the source of livelihood happens to be more on nature-based products. One of them happens to be the one that I use myself as a cup, which I'm sure would be very common in Fiji as well, made out of the coconut shell. And we realized, that how sustainable products that we together as nations, both the nations have, and then realizing that our very Prime Minister announced that, Atmanirbhar Bharat, we need to make sure that these sustainable products are reached globally so that to combat climate action together. So Ambassador, over to you. What are the alternative sources of livelihood for the young people in SIDS, which can directly contribute to nature-based solutions and achieving climate action in the end of the day?
Thank you. And thank you for that example. I'd forgotten to mention last year you had launched those several plastic substitute products from coconut. And so coconut ties Fiji and India and all of the Pacific Islands. And so you have coconuts in your part of India and most of India. And that is sort of the mainstay across most of our countries, and it itself, that's just one example, probably lends itself to hundreds of products, right? From soap to oil, from the fibers you used, and for making all sorts of, including plastic substitute products. Yesterday, I saw you launch the bamboo tiffin, and that is very exciting. Just so common sense that why can bamboo, which already has the cavities, you don't have to recreate it, not be morphed into a tiffin, which just about everybody in India uses, and many of us will find a bamboo water bottle a much better product than the water bottle that we are carrying usually. So in all, I will want to learn more about this program that the Prime Minister has launched. It sounds very exciting. I think one of the platforms for SDGs has to be more circular economies, that the products originate sustainably, that they travel slightly less, they end up with consumers. And when you are globalizing, that you are globalizing, the product and the full cycle is being globalized. So you are recreating a bamboo-based industry in Fiji, for example, that already works in Siliguri. That's the example. And then and there are many sort of clusters of it spread across the world. So you have circular economies, but that are also globalized in the same way in which the old dirty industries were globalized. And that, again, I would say it's limitless, right? That's where the imagination has to be. And that is its contribution to climate action, to oceans action, to all of those climate fighting objectives that we have will be substantial, one. And two, that it doesn't look so far-fetched. Sometimes, some of these global goals look so far-fetched, right? It's something that I'm doing, what I'm purchasing from my corner shop is a very deliberate choice I'm making at that moment. Is this, how sustainable is this? How ecologically sound is this? What is its footprint on the biodiversity in Siliguri? And how much is this a tax on the climate, on the planet, on the water resources, etc.? These kind of questions come in, and each time as consumers we are purchasing a product, or we are acquiring a product, we are making that important choice. But yes, and on fibers and handloom, that is exactly another example of sustainability, that the way in which the fibers are created, to the way in which they are woven, and the way in which they are designed and then they are presented, that is part of a circular economy, and absolutely what practical example of climate action should look like. That to me is the core of climate action. I won't pitch my wife Kushma's enterprise here. There may be some conflict of interest, but that is absolutely at the core of climate action. And I hope more and more there's great energy in India, from Fiji and from the Pacific perspective. We are very excited, and I'm sure the listeners from that region will be very excited to learn about how young people are innovating in these areas, pushing the boundaries, bringing new products that are far more sustainable onto the market, and seeing how we can take them to the next level.
Right, Ambassador. I mean, thank you so much for giving us an overview understanding of how important it is to have, products like these, which are just not going to achieve the SDG 2030 as a whole, but then also going to empower young people into the circular economy, strengthening them at the base of where we have to go together. Ambassador, there have been a lot of questions that are coming up, but something that you are an advocate about, which we would really like to hear it more from you. Ambassador, what do you think would the role of young people be towards the Global Ocean Alliance, the 30 by 30? And could we initiate a preparatory roadmap towards COP26?
Okay, fantastic. I'm very pleased and actually very energized to hear about the interest in the Oceans Alliance. Yeah. Long and short, as many of your listeners would be aware, 2030, we need to protect 30% of the world's oceans by 2030. And 2030 is coming, it will come very soon. It is not in some distant future. Why do we need to protect 30% of the oceans? That's the minimum the world thinks that needs to be protected to maintain biodiversity on the oceans. And the biodiversity on the oceans are linked to biodiversity on land as well. As I said, Himalayas and Ganges and oceans, they're one interconnected ecosystem at the end. And so by protecting 30% of the world's oceans, it's an investment in our future. That's first. It's an investment in the things that are needed to maintain life in the oceans is there on a sufficient scale to make a difference. If it were only 5% that were saved, the scientists are telling us that will not be enough to maintain the biodiversity that is needed. So that's why the 30% target is there. India and Fiji and many countries have already signed up to be part of the 30 Alliance, and if all the oceanic states signed up and we're beginning to take action towards the 30, we will get there. If we, but that's also an enormous opportunity for young people. I cannot overstate this. We know more about the surface of the moon than we know about our oceans. So those young people who simply want to commit themselves to a life of research and understanding about the oceans, anything, whether it's from the social sciences of coastal communities' dependence on oceans, right? That type of thing, to oceans marine sciences, to geomapping, to IT-enabled services for tracing food on the oceans using new technologies, blockchains, and so on. In any of these areas, there are just so many opportunities, countless opportunities for young people to come and bring these ideas to the marketplace, and including maybe test them in Fiji and in the Pacific Islands and bring them to scale. We have innovation hubs, we have innovation centers, and you could use them to test some of your ideas and scale them up slowly. So the 30 is a very crucial part of, I would say, I would go further on trying to maintain life on planet as we know it. If we hit that box, if we really achieve that, we would have done just the bare minimum enough to maintain life on the oceans. If we did not do that, you're looking at a collapse of marine life, you're looking at a very rapid collapse of coastal ecosystems, and as a consequence of life on the higher seas, collapse of tuna fish stocks and all types of fish stocks on which a big part of the world's population depend on for their protein, and the reverse of that, of not being able to get there, is quite dire. So I really hope that young people look at the oceans and the 30 and so many other parts of the Oceans Action Platform and apply themselves in the same way as they've applied themselves to industries that are more land-based traditionally. In terms of a roadmap, I hope in the lead to the COP26, which will be held in Glasgow next year, that some of the progress of countries, that we will be able to share the progress of different countries globally and learn from each other at the COP. and for young people, that they will be able to showcase some of the remarkable things that they're doing in India, in Fiji, in Pacific Islands, across the world in the ocean space, that they will be able to share some of these experiences at COP26, as well as at the more important for oceans space, the Oceans Conference, which will be held in Portugal sometime in the early part of next year. It's a great transformative moment. And on top of that, from 1st of January starts a decade of ocean science. And this is not defined, this decade of ocean science is not defined in scientific terms. It is, science is used in the more general way. It can be about social sciences, anthropology of oceans, all of that type of thing, sociology, intercommunity relations, conflict and peace on the oceans. And so I hope more and more young people will also be devoting themselves to pursuing this type of careers and exploring initiatives that are more ocean-based. So it's a very exciting time and a remarkably important new area for young people that may not have thought about it traditionally. It is no longer about trying to be the best road engineer, which is important. I'm not saying it is not important, trying to be the best doctor. I mentioned doctor, more and more of medicines depend on our oceans, right? It's so fundamental already. A couple of the COVID vaccines are ocean-based, based on spores from the ocean. So it's very fundamental to our health in terms of medicine as well, that we maintain the biodiversity of the oceans and not kill it through human action as well as through slow onset of climate change.
Ambassador, the way you had mentioned about how the surface of the moon is much more known than compared to the surface of oceans, and I completely reconcile with the kind of roadmap that you have led us with us today. Ambassador, just to share, it's a privilege and it's an honor that Youth of India Foundation has been one of the organizations, one of the civil society organizations that was given the special accreditation to the 2020 Oceans Conference. And we are glad that you are one of those leading advocates of ocean and the nature-based solution, that we are able to discuss and have this entire dialogue with you today and learn more from your entire experience as well. Ambassador, not taking much of your time, just one last question, if you would allow. And I am aware that, if I could take this question in Hindi, maybe, if that would be fine.
Chalo, chale.
जी, तो Ambassador, Youth of India और Youth of Fiji, दोनों कैसे एक साथ मिलकर काम कर सकते हैं आपकी लीडरशिप में? How can Youth of India and Youth of Fiji work together in future under your leadership and mentorship?
जी, thank you, Sailesh ji. यूथ ऑफ इंडिया और यूथ ऑफ फिजी और यूथ ऑफ पैसिफिक को मेरा लीडरशिप का कोई ज़रूरी नहीं है. आप लोग खुद में अपने में लीडर हो, ये बात मान लीजिए. यू आर लीडर्स वेयर यू आर. तो ये पहला बात है. आप अगर इंतज़ार करोगे किसी और के लीडरशिप के, तो काम रुक जाएगा, आगे नहीं बढ़ पाएगा. तो ये मेरा पहला. लेकिन मैं जैसे कह रहा था सैलेश, अब दुनिया जहाँ पर है, जिस तरह के चुनाव चैलेंजेस है दुनिया के सामने, जो क्लाइमेट चेंज हुआ और जिस तरह से हमारे ओशंस के लाइवलीहुड थ्रेटन्ड है, और तमाम इंटर रिलेटेड जो ह्यूमन एक्टिविटी है, सब बहुत सिविली थ्रेटन्ड है. तो समय है कि जो नौजवान है, चाहे वो वैज्ञानिक हो या एक्टिविस्ट हो या सहायक हो किसी तरह का, कि आप लोग खुद में अपने विचार से, अपने लीडरशिप के साथ में, सॉलिडेरिटी के साथ में मिलजुल के, फिजी या भारत और देश के यूथ लोग साथ मिलजुल के काम करें, और जो एक समस्या जिससे हम गुजर रहे, उसका क्या रेंज ऑफ हल कहाँ से निकलेगा. जैसे कुछ समस्या सी लेवल राइज है, जो कोस्टल कम्युनिटी उड़ीसा में हुआ या वेस्ट बंगाल में हुआ, उनका ज़मीन जहाँ पर वो राइस वगैरह बो रहे थे, अब वो नहीं कर पाते क्योंकि समुद्र और सॉल्ट वाटर इंट्रूजन के लिए। तो इस तरह की समस्या के बारे में हम क्या कर सकते हैं? शायद मैंग्रोव प्लांटिंग अच्छा आइडिया है, सही है, शायद नहीं है, ये मैं नहीं जानता, लेकिन इस तरह के नेचर बेस्ड सोल्यूशन जिसे हम कहते हैं, ये यंग पीपल भारत का बहुत एनर्जेटिक है, बहुत आइडियाज है इनके पास। इस तरह के आइडिया से मार्केट प्लेस पे लेके आ सकते हैं कुछ आइडियाज इस तरह के, और आप फिजी के यंग पीपल के साथ काम कर सकते हैं। कुछ आइडियाज आगे बढ़ेगा, कुछ नहीं बढ़ेगा, कुछ प्राइवेट सेक्टर शायद सपोर्ट कर देगा, कुछ सरकार के इंटरेस्ट में रहेगा कि वो सरकार उस स्पेस में आ जाए। तो इस तरह के तमाम प्लेटफॉर्म है जहां यूथ ऑफ इंडिया और यूथ ऑफ फिजी और यूथ ऑफ पैसिफिक आइलैंड्स के जो छोटे छोटे देश है, इसमें मैं आपसे रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि ये प्लेटफॉर्म यूज करके और उन सब के साथ रिश्तेदारी बनाए, रिलेशनशिप बनाए, रिलेशनशिप रिसर्च करे और आइडियाज शेयर करे, प्लेटफॉर्म शेयर करे, और खुद का जो प्रोग्रेस आप कर रहे होंगे शायद बेम्बू के नेचर बेस्ड सॉल्यूशंस में, उसको शायद हम पापुआ न्यू गिनी में अप्लाई कर पाएंगे, या शायद आप नारियल के साथ जो नेचर बेस्ड सॉल्यूशंस प्लास्टिक सब्स्टिट्यूट बना रहे हैं उसको हम फिजी या सभी पैसिफिक आइलैंड्स में शायद अप्लाई कर पाएंगे। और इस तरह से हम आइडिया शेयर कर सकते हैं और आगे बढ़ सकते हैं। तो ये मैं माफ़ करना, मेरा हिंदी बहुत मजबूत नहीं है, but I hope sense maker you can make sense of this. Thank you.
एम्बेसडर, आपकी हिंदी इतनी अच्छी है कि यहाँ पर जो सुन रहे हैं वो भी सोच रहे होंगे कि आप भारत के ही हैं, और आपके एंसेस्ट्रल रूट जो आपने बताया 150 साल पहले प्लस माइनस रहा, वो आप अभी भी वो कनेक्ट नहीं छूटा है। तो जैसे बोलते हैं कि पेड़ मजबूत तभी रहता है जब उनके रूट तमाम बहुत स्ट्रांग रहते हैं, वैसे ही आपके रूट्स मुझे लग रहा है इतने स्ट्रांग है कि आपकी हिंदी इतनी अच्छी है कि मुझे तो आनंद आ रहा था आपको सुनते हुए, एंड आई वाज फीलिंग सो हैप्पी विद द काइंड ऑफ सॉल्यूशंस दैट यू हैव शेयर्ड एम्बेसडर। बहुत अच्छी बात ये थी कि आपने खाली सॉल्यूशंस के बारे में बात किया है आज, और हम सबको एक नया दिशा, you have given us a new dimension to what has to be done. And I think it is very crucial what you stated, that we don't need leaders today, but as I understand, we need people like you who have ample amount of experiences to show us the path, or to lead us to guide us to make sure that we achieve 2030 by the same visions that has been laid by people like you. And we're so glad that you are one of those advocates who encourage, support the young people. And I think it is fantastic to hear different solutions that you have given us today. Including the circular economy that you talked about, from the nature-based solutions to the research that has to happen into different fields, and the kind of exchange that needs to come together in the cooperation and collaboration with the young people from India, Fiji Islands, Fiji specific islands, and across the globe, so that there's a sharing of knowledge that has to happen. And I'm so glad, Ambassador, that you reconcile all those thoughts and values that we can strongly imbibe and work on together with your mentorship and leadership, of course. Thank you so much, Ambassador. Vinake Vaka Levu. Dhanyavad.
Thank you, Celeste. Dhanavad. And I really enjoyed this interaction. I wish you really well, and Godspeed and good luck. And my namaskar to all your listeners. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.